The Navy Arms in Sittingbourne was one of the pubs put up on land sold by Canon George Simpson of Bobbing. It was opened as a beer house in 1866. No coincidence that this was about the time that the railway station opened. The Navy Arms was situated at the junction of Queen Street and Princes Street, but the address used mostly seems to have been 8 Princes Street. Princes Street extended into what was called the Tram Road, which ran parallel to the railway line on its north side. 49-year-old Henry Mutlow and his wife were here in 1871, and they may have been the very first inhabitants. Henry's principal occupation is listed as shipwright. Andrew Horton, a wheelwright from Chilham, is listed as the licensee in 1881 with his wife Louisa, 4 children and several lodgers. According to the London Gazette, Andrew seems to have been declared bankrupt in October of that very year. James Bowell, 77, from Cowley with his wife Eliza, 63, were there in 1891 with a couple of lodgers. Kelly's directory lists a Mrs. Eliza Broad in 1899, but I wonder if this could be the same Eliza. William Pettit, who grew up in Faith Street, was here as landlord by 1901 with his wife Selina and 2 young daughters. 35-year-old James Wells from Hadlow was the landlord in 1908 with his wife Emily, who was 4 years younger. By 1911 they also had 2 young daughters, Kathleen and Gladys, and the address given in 1911 is 8 Princes Street. The Navy Arms was just one of several pubs in the vicinity of the paper mill. In 1913 the licence was transferred from a George Elkington to William Thomas Chantler. During the First World War, pub opening hours were strictly controlled, and in 1917 William Chantler was one of several fined for keeping illegal hours. Christopher Dickinson had the pub up to March 1922, when the licence was transferred to Walter Houghton, whose father Frederick had the Fleur-de-Lis pub. In April, the Navy Arms darts team won the Sittingbourne and District Dart League Shield. Several of the men in this picture of the darts team of 1922 were paper mill employees. Landlord Walter Houghton is believed to be the one sitting on the curb in the front. He was certainly still here at the Navy Arms in 1925. A rather curious fire occurred just before Christmas of that year, when apparently ashes from Walter's pipe set on fire and destroyed a bundle of banknotes to the value of £300, due to be shared out to club members that very evening. In the end, Stahl and Winch generously stumped up the money. This was equivalent to about £18,000 in today's money. The recently widowed 62-year-old Charlotte Moon was licensee in 1939, but gave up the pub soon afterwards. Albert Vincent Farrington House and Florence Agnes, known as Flossie or Flo, were landlord and landlady of the pub for around 20 years from about 1939. Albert's father and grandfather had been bargemen, but the family had lived around Eastbourne Street for quite a while. Albert worked on the council dust carts all day, and when he got home he helped Flossie to run the pub for the evening shift. Flossie or Flo worked from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. each day, and then evenings from 6 till 10:30. Sundays were until 10 p.m. A pint of beer cost 6p. Janice Farrington House was the youngest of their 10 children, born in 1938. This is Jan standing on the corner to the left of the pub. The pub had sash windows and was owned by Stahl and Winch. Princes Street must be to the right and Queen Street to the left. Jan has many memories of growing up in the pub. I remember the pipes in the cellar were made of glass, and every time my dad pulled a pint, I'd watch the beer travel up the pipes from the cellar up to the bar. I also remember tapping the barrel. My dad would hit the tap on the beer barrel with a mallet. The aim had to be completely accurate, otherwise the beer would spurt out everywhere. The women who worked in Wills and Packham, the brickfields, would walk up the tram road after work, and Albert would see them walking up and get their drinks ready for them. Jan recalls, I remember a big gold bell being rung when it was last orders. In the 1940s and 50s the pub was also known as the Flying Piss Pot. Soldiers regularly drank there. It was convenient as it was near to the station. They'd hop off the train and visit the pub. The soldiers treated my mum and dad really well and gave them big lumps of cheese, and I mean big bits, the size of a plate. In return, they'd sleep on the floor of the pub for the night. We did get the odd fight. We used the cellar in the war to sleep in during air raids, and there'd be beds made up. It would stink of beer down there. My sister Ruby would refuse to sleep in the cellar. If there was an air raid, the customers wouldn't be allowed in the pub, but my mum and dad would let them in one at a time, and they would drink in our kitchen. Albert was in the ARP, and his daughter Ruby was in the Land Army. On a Saturday, my mum would do sandwiches for the locals on the bar. The club room was for the kids, and that's where the piano was. Another room opposite the club room was the dining room. I remember 5 rooms downstairs and a long passage, and 5 bedrooms and a cellar. One of the bedrooms were used as a front room. Albert's friend Kenneth ran the Fountain pub on the other side of the railway line, and they would regularly hold darts matches between the two pubs. Jan recalled, we were often overrun with mice from the nearby brickfields. My job was to take the dartboards off the wall and soak them in the rainwater in the beer barrels for 2 or 3 days. My other job was to daily check the outside toilets to make sure there was toilet paper. I would cut up newspaper into squares, tie it with string and push it on a nail. Due to my age, I wasn't allowed in the bar. I used to look out of the hatch into the pub to see what was going on. I'd play outside in the local area and play a game called Hit the Tin. The sign saying Queen Street was made of tin. There'd be 2 sides of boys and girls, and we tried to hit the tin sign with a ball. I also remember playing in the washbacks, the brickfields, and the hacks over the bricks. We would run over the top of the pugs. In the backyard were the 2 toilets, men's and women's. The customers used ours. There were no sinks or toilet paper, only the newspaper I cut up and put in there each day. After the war, a bathroom was put in one of the bedrooms, but it was never plumbed in. Outings were regularly held during Burton Flo's time. This is another day out in the Sharabang. The man holding the Navy Arms sign on the day out is my brother Bert. I was 4 or 5 when I remember him coming home from the war. He survived the war, but tragically died in an accident at Bowwaters in 1950 when some logs fell on him. For entertainment, Mr. Smith used to play the piano. Sometimes Albert would play the banjo, I'd play the accordion and my cousin Glenn the drums. Afterwards we'd send a cap round and customers would give us a few pennies. Regulars would also bring in a stomper to play. I remember some of the regulars' names. There was Podge, who's the last man standing on the right, with Flossie at the bar. He used to pong a bit. He worked in a factory and he'd stand by the fire, which was lit every day. Little Dolly, the lady in the beret, came in every day on her own for her ale. She always wore a beret, and I remember her coat being filthy. When I got married, I held my wedding reception in the bar where the piano was. Albert died in 1959 and Flossie ran the pub for about a year afterwards until 1960 on her own, and then bought a house in Bassett Road. She died in 1976. The pub had been demolished along with other houses in the street before 1963. After demolition, mostly during the 1970s, the site where the houses of Eastbourne Street, Faith Street, Queen Street and Princess Street was for many years a council depot. It is now a retail park, and where the tram road ran is now heavy with traffic linking this Milton Road junction with another busy junction in Crownkey Lane. If you have found this video interesting, please subscribe to our YouTube channel or visit our website.